So today I'm joined by Kevin, and he is a creative director. Can I say that? Or what can I call you?
No, let's go with creative entrepreneur.
Creative entrepreneur, guys.
Yeah.
That is actually a term. So today we're talking about mental health in men. I know that a lot of people, when they think of mental health, they're most likely to think of a woman or a child or never really a guy or a man. You know, the men are supposed to have everything together. So what comes to mind when you think of mental health, especially in men?
Well, the thing is with mental health, especially amongst men, is a conversation that's not happening.
Yeah.
But before we can even dissect that, we have to look at it from a sort of a cultural, traditional standpoint.
Okay.
Because ultimately, men are. I mean, you're supposed to be strong.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to voice your emotions. So already society has you in a position where you can't really communicate how you feel. So once we've unpacked that, then we'll be able to sort of move in a direction of talking about the mental health of men.
That also sort of makes me think of sort of the roles that the men play in our lives.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're supposed to be a provider. They're supposed to bring the money home.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be the protector. They're supposed to be the foundation of a family or of a community. So it's always sort of like, what do you think? Or what do you mean he's got a depression problem? What do you think? What do you mean he's got stress issues? I mean,
exactly.
He's a man. He's supposed to be okay, you know? So I think like the expectations that society has is sort of like it's not in the right space. It's not where it should be. I think there needs to be like a mental shift in society that needs to happen for that to be recognized.
But the thing is, society is changing so much, especially like for me in my immediate circles, especially with my male counterparts. It's a conversation that we're having. It's how are you, but how are you really?
Really,
you know, it's not just like how are you or what's up, buddy.
Yeah.
It's you're actually trying to find out. We're actually trying to find out how we feel about or what we're going through.
But also, in order for us to talk about what we're going through, we need to be raised a certain type of way. Because when it comes to raising our kids or our men and our boys, I mean, they're raised in a way that where they need to be strong, where they can't voice their emotions, they can't be sad, you know. So we'll talk about sort of like what the repercussions of that are.
Yeah.
But I think like it all starts with how do we raise them in a way where they feel comfortable enough to express their emotions and to express their situation, whether it's emotional or whether it's even mental, you know. Like I think you know how they say the first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have got a problem.
Exactly.
But now men don't admit that.
Okay, well,
I mean, there are some guys who are very vocal and they communicate very well and they're expressive.
That's
but
true.
I think like majority of them sort of like they don't have that opportunity.
Now that I think about it, actually, the reason that doesn't happen is also because there aren't safe spaces for men to express how they really feel. And then obviously coming back to how you choose to raise your sons should be in an environment where they can talk about just about anything, because ultimately before one can talk about how they feel, they have to be safe.
Yeah.
So you want to be safe that if I express that, you know, I'm actually sad about something, it won't be like, oh no, you can't be sad, you're a man.
So, it brings me to the next question. I'm not so sure how I would answer it myself, but given the whole masculinity of what a man is supposed to, or the level of masculinity that a man is supposed to possess.
Or embody. Yeah.
How do you then raise them in such a way that they still maintain that masculinity or or sort of like the position that already men are perceived to have in a society. How do you make them comfortable enough to still be a man but still be vulnerable at the same time?
I think the first thing to do is not to police a child.
Not to?
Not to police a child.
Yeah.
Because a lot of,
Yes.
even the way that I was raised, a lot of things were policed. It's, you can't do that, you can't go there, you know. So the policing needs to be done away with before obviously implementing raising a child in a liberal way.
And just trying to find a balance, I guess, between sort of setting certain limits and also making sure that also women, you know, sort of get the fair chance as well to sort of stand up for themselves and also be strong. Because, you know, women are raised to be sort of like weak and they need to be needy.
And you have to be subordinate to your
and
male.
you need to be subordinate. So I think like if there's like a balance between how we raise women or girls and boys, needs to the balance needs to be there.
But how would you think we would be able to strike that balance?
Well, I mean, we're in a society or a time right now where we want equality for everybody. But equality, I feel, needs to start from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, charity starts at home.
Right?
Charity starts at home. So if there's anything that you want to see in the world, it has to come out of your own.
Yes. So the moment that we see there's or we set a difference between the sexes, sort of like, this is a boy, I need to treat a boy like this, and this is a girl, I need to treat a girl like this.
I think that's where the problem is.
That's where the problem is. We're not going to achieve anything.
Yeah.
And then, but right now, is mental health in men a thing? Is it as much as, is it as big as we're trying to make it? Is it?
It's definitely not that big of a conversation yet, but it's transitioning or it's moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Like I said, how even the way that my friends interact with me, it's almost that, okay, yes, I see you and you know you're doing well, but like how are you you know, keeping up, or how are you hanging on? But again, like I said, it comes back to just curating safe spaces for males and females also, actually.
Yeah. And I think also when you mentioned tradition, it obviously also spoke to me in the sense that a lot of black, or in the black community, you know, like the men are not supposed to sort of be vulnerable to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They're supposed to just...
They're alpha males, basically.
They're just alpha males. They need to have it together. So I think, like, I'm not so sure. I can't for a fact say that, listen, white people are like this and black people are like this. But I know for a fact that black men are not supposed to voice their emotions as much as white men do. I think white people have got sort of like that freedom to express themselves, but not with us. How do you feel?
That is so true, and unfortunately, it's going to take a while because there are influences that we have as males, black males. There are influences that we have that are generational, like your grandfather is still alive or your uncle is still alive. So until that mindset is shifted...
Until those people die.
No. I mean, no. They don't even have to necessarily die. But it's about just shifting the mindset and understanding. Because if you brought it to their attention, it's something that they would be aware of.
But even the old people, they brush it off still.
Yes.
I mean, if you go to your father right now and you tell them, "Listen, Dad, I think I'm depressed," they're like, "What do you mean?
Stop
you're
with those
depressed?
depression things. Those are Western things.
Those are Western things.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the word. That's the word that I'm looking for. It's a Western culture type of thing.
Yeah.
It's not an emotion that you're supposed to feel. I mean, how do you divide emotional balances or emotions based on where you come from?
It's difficult work to sit down black parents and tell them that, you know what, this is what's happening and this is how I intend on it being approached.
Yes.
It's always like, oh no, yes, we hear you out, but we're going to do what we know and what has worked for us.
Exactly. And also it comes with lack of knowledge.
Yep.
It comes with lack of knowledge because a lot of, obviously for us, I mean, education came a bit later for us.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to adapt to the whole thing of, or culture of reading and informing ourselves about certain situations, about even the psychology of the human being.
Yep.
I think when it comes to, when you even tell your father or your parents that, listen, I want to be a psychologist, they'll tell you,
That's the same as wanting to become a fashion designer.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
be
that.
a doctor, be a lawyer. What do you mean you're going to become a psychologist? I mean,
Just
what do
doesn't make
psychologists
sense.
do? It doesn't make sense.
There's no medical aid there, apparently. Yeah.
So, which brings me to the next point,
Uh-huh.
that ironically, the suicide rate in men is much higher than what it is in women.
Definitely.
And obviously that comes with what we've just discussed, that, listen, men are, they instead of talking about what they're feeling, they'll probably take an easier route to deal with it.
And just committing suicide.
And that's their way of dealing with it.
Last year, I lost a friend to suicide. And the thing was, okay, I had not seen him for a very long time. And then I saw him again maybe a month before he committed suicide. And the thing is, he was always happy. He was always happy.
I was just going to ask, like, were there any signs that you saw in him?
None whatsoever. Everybody else felt the same way. They couldn't see anything. There were no hints until they found him hanging over the door. So it was his girlfriend that found him. So obviously he wasn't in enough safe spaces to be able to talk about how he really feels about certain things.
Yeah.
And that's what led to that.
Wow. And that's not a unique case.
No, it's not.
Unfortunately.
Definitely not.
It
Definitely
really
not.
isn't. If you look at sort of the US, the rates are as follows. Men die by suicide at rates almost 4 times higher than women.
4 times.
4 times higher than women.
So if it was a 10% for women, it would be like 40% for...
Exactly.
Wow.
Those are the numbers that we're looking for.
All right.
And in Africa, Namibia is one of the 4th highest in terms of African countries, in terms of suicide rates. So I don't know how one can sort of like make that or understand that or at least understand the causes of it.
Do you understand why? Again, do you understand like why we should always look at it at a traditional or cultural standpoint?
Yeah.
It's because a lot of it influences the way black men exist in society.
Yes.
Or how they should conduct themselves. And it makes sense. It makes sense.
It makes sense. Even if you look at sort of like how open are we in terms of, even when you talk about fashion or when you talk about being a psychologist,
Yeah.
I think like our parents are not very open to those ideas. I think we're a very, very young country
Yeah.
who needs to move from certain ways of living or certain
or other traditional aspects of
perceptions.
things, yeah.
Exactly. And that will solve like a lot of problems, not only in terms of suicide or mental health, but also sort of how we deal with whatever other issues that may come in our lives, I believe.
Yeah, especially youth. I mean,
Yeah.
the very identity of Namibia in terms of the youth is there is no identity. And a lot of it is borrowed from their elders. And the elders have already this understanding of how they should exist or how they should conduct themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly young economy, obviously, but there are other aspects of the economy that need to be developed in order for things to change.
Yes, and even worse now that we're exposed. I mean, we've got things like television, we've got things like the cell phone, we've got social media. I mean, so when you've got social media influencing our personal lives and how we want to live our personal lives, there's a big
It's almost like it gives you direction as to giving your country an identity.
Yes.
Because, I mean, most countries have an identity. If you think of someone from London,
Yes.
you know exactly what they're about.
Yes.
Now, if you talk about someone from Namibia, you can't really pinpoint it.
No, you can't. The youth realize the opportunities that are out there, but the moment they try to tap into those opportunities, they're kind of like held back because of our parents' perception and ways of doing things that
Exactly.
they're already used to. So it even goes to a political level. it is really, really,
It transcends
really
so
bad.
many things, actually.
Yeah.
It's so many things that are influencing the way that the youth, and not just the youth, but the way that we exist.
Yeah, yeah. And then I would like to get to the effects of mental health, but before I do get to that, we're going to take a short break and we will be right back.
Alrighty.
So I want to talk about the effects. Sort of what are the issues that affect our men, bringing it to depression or high stress levels, whatever it is. We've obviously identified emotional intelligence, which has got to do with the way we were brought up and the way we deal with our emotions, and or ability to deal with our emotions. Also, the other problem is always the finances.
That's true.
And obviously the economic situation right now. Imagine being like completely broke.
Yeah.
And you were well off, and now they're taking your house. They're taking
you have
your
to fend for your
furniture.
family.
You have to, exactly, but you're unable to.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other issues that you see, or contributing factors at least?
Look, I think a lot of it comes from. It deals with perception, and that societal perception of how men want to exist in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched. Have you watched Moonlight?
Moonlight. I don't know. I know the movie, but I'm not so sure if I've watched it or not.
Okay, so with Moonlight, right? I think it's a really important film in terms of documenting the experience that black men have with, in terms of mental health.
Yeah.
The boy grew up his mother was drug addicted, but also his society didn't make it very easy for him to exist or to establish an identity for himself, which then in turns obviously, like you see, the thing is with mental health, it almost affects so many parts of your life, and you don't see it.
Yeah.
So yes, finances can be one thing.
It creeps up on you.
Yeah, it does.
I think it's hard to even diagnose somebody with a mental health issue.
Yeah,
especially
to sort of
men.
know, like, what is it that's informing that, or why their mental health is the way that it is. Yeah.
And another effect also comes with loss of a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
I think when men grieve, they don't grieve the same way women do.
Yeah.
Like say losing your child or losing your wife or even a family member that you were really close to. I think like if you even do cry on the day of the burial, it's like wow, like you even get so touched as opposed to how you get touched when the woman cries, right? It touches you deeper.
And you're just reminding me of when my father passed on in 2012.
Yeah.
My brother and I were so different. The way we responded to the situation, it was so different. I was wailing. I was crying. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And then for him, he just sat there. He just sat there and took it all in. But then sort of the years, as the years went on, I was noticing that I dealt with it faster than he did.
Right?
Because it still lingers. So I mean, it obviously comes down to the freedom that you're afforded in terms of mourning.
Right.
You lose a loved one, and I remember the one day I was crying, and my uncle told me, no, you need to stop that. All of that is happening, you need to stop it right now.
Was your brother older? Is your brother older?
Yes, my brother is older than me.
So he was probably expected to sort of take care of everything, coordinate.
Not even because the thing is, we have older sisters.
Oh, okay.
So they were doing most of the work. With him, it was nobody understood why he was almost not responsive.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, I'm just here. Okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
But then obviously he's been dealing with it over the years.
Yeah. Because also, I mean, you don't know whether this person has fully accepted it or not. Are they sad? Are they not sad? Are they grieving? Are they not grieving? And it's so hard to help somebody like that.
Especially picking yourself up from something, because loss is such a heavy thing.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for you to get it off you.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't make it out. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't make it out. Sometimes you're fortunate enough to make it out,
Yeah.
or to be able to maneuver around it.
It's even worse when you completely shut it out. It's even worse because then it comes like a mountain actually when it does come.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst part of it. And I think also another problem is relationships, because I've seen that because a lot of men don't know how to deal with their emotions, and because they're also probably depressed, they obviously turn that into aggression and anger. So obviously that's sort of like a way of releasing for them. And obviously it's not the right way.
It's not the right way, but also it's almost like societies have made it okay. Not okay, but acceptable for that to be the outlet.
Yeah, but
There
now
was
it's a problem. Now
yes,
it's an
now
issue.
now it has become
Now it's
like a problem,
Yeah.
but then it should have been dealt with before it became a problem. Like you find that when a woman, for example, comes back to her family and she's talking about how she's being abused, it's almost like, oh, that's how marriage is. These things go away, and they never do. So it's almost like it's normalized.
Testosterone. Men are just aggressive.
He's just stressed out because of the money. I mean, you guys are living well, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been normalized. It's been
Yeah.
normalized, and now that it's become a problem, it's almost like,
Now people are trying to find the root causes.
and
Only
go
now.
backtrack and sort of like see, okay, where can we remedy it? But
Yeah.
that may take a lot more work than it would have had it been dealt with
Yeah.
when it was not so big of an
And we
issue.
don't realize that it doesn't just take awareness. It's fine. You can make people aware of it, but I mean, apart from awareness, what are you really doing? Are we counseling the people? Are we trying to even counsel our own parents to say that, listen, there's certain things that you need to instill in your child from a young age already to avoid these things from happening. I think that a lot of people are sort of more proactive in raising the girl child and not
the boy child, not so much.
You know, because when you've got sort of like men who are raised in a certain type of way, who know that, listen, this person is equal to me, and I need to respect that, and I need to respect what they want and how they want things done. It's not always my way. I'm not always right.
Yeah.
And if I feel like they've made me angry, I need to express it.
Or-
It's fine to
yeah.
express it, that, listen, when you do this, it makes me angry. Or
And I have to beat you, or I have to cuss at you.
Exactly.
And it's funny that you brought it up now, because I recently just finished a project
Yeah.
for gender-based violence survivors.
Oh.
And I was surprised that there was a male in the group. Because usually you think of gender-based violence and you think, okay, it's women, it's children, it's whatever. And there was a man in the group. And his story, it was actually interesting that he was able to backtrack his story
Yeah.
as to when it started for him and why he
Right.
turned out the way that he is. And it was just because of how he was raised by his uncle. His uncle displayed the same characteristics and he looked up to him.
Yes.
So he influenced a lot of the way that he exists in society.
It's the environment
Yeah.
that we grow up in. It's
Majority of the time, it's the environment that's informing the
Yeah.
way that men
Yeah.
react or conduct themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and lack of knowledge. Again, I bring that up. I think knowledge is power.
It
And
really is.
funny enough, also, okay, apart from major life changes, there's also obviously when you get into a different situation. For example, there are certain men that are used to a certain lifestyle, and when everything gets taken away from them, that is a major change in their lives.
And they act out.
And not realizing that this could potentially be depression. They act out in different ways, whether it's alcohol abuse or whether it's substance abuse.
Or promiscuity.
The last thing that men want to sort of think of is that I'm depressed. I'm not stressed out. It's not just work stress. I am actually depressed. And also, it's okay to seek help. You know what I mean?
That's where the difficulty is. Because I think men think about like what is the perspective or the perception that people will have of me if I'm seeking help.
Yeah.
Seeking help for something that is not deemed to be a problem for men, but more other people and not men necessarily.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It's really tough, and I don't know how to get them out of that space. But we'll talk about support just now as well.
All right.
And funny enough, apparently one of the contributing factors are also genes. Apparently you can get mental health or depression can be genetically transferred.
I think generationally, yes, but genetic-wise, I don't. Perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know how.
That could contribute because, I mean, genetics, obviously, then it's almost established in how vulnerable you are to certain things, how responsive you are to certain things.
Yeah.
And that, obviously, that in turns...
Yeah.
It informs your mental health.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. I honestly, obviously, we're not biologists, we're not scientists,
That's
we're not
true.
so sure how the genes, but that is an apparent factor as well.
Yeah.
And then I want to move on to support. How do we support these people? Because, for example, if I were to be in a relationship and I notice a certain change in behavior or attitude in my partner, how do I know that, okay, maybe this person is depressed or this person has a mental health issue? I think a lot of women also don't know how to pick it up. I think that a lot of women also see it as just stress. You know, that maybe my husband is just stressed.
Yeah.
It's stuff at work. But how do we really get to the point of diagnosing the problem?
Diagnosing the problem shouldn't necessarily be the thing because obviously as anybody that is to engage and to interact with this person would pick up that, okay, maybe this person is a little too aggressive. So the best way to remedy that, I feel, is to create a safe space. Create a safe space that the man can have whatever type of conversation he wants to have.
Yeah.
And not be like, oh, you're angry, and then now you get angry also, and now before you know it, it's a fight.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, okay, how can I help?
Yeah.
Or where can I meet you? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Like that's the best place to start is how are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? How are you feeling today?
Yeah.
Or how do you feel about the fact that this situation took place?
Yes.
Because sometimes we never talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy just lost a deal. It was a deal that he was supposed to get. He didn't get it. You know,
what does this mean for you?
Yes. How do you feel? Like, how do you feel like it could have played out? So it's
what was on the line for you? And when he mentioned sort of like what was on the line for him, then it means, okay, then it must be deeper.
Then you
than
understand, so that he
like
also has
that
support.
Plus aggression, plus change in behavior, or even eating disorders.
Yep. Eating disorders, I think, are the most prevalent of the symptoms.
Yeah. I honestly think that for us women, we also need to try and inform ourselves and read more about mental health in men and try to see how we can be a better support system for these people. Because a lot of the times, because men don't communicate, we're like, okay, fine.
Whatever.
He doesn't talk in any case, so whatever he's going through, I'm sure he's going to get over it.
Yeah.
But it's not the case. So it also is our own personal... It needs to be an initiative from our side as well. Whatever partner you're in, whether it's you're the woman or whether it's a I don't know, just a relationship, or whether
queer relationships,
it's your mother,
straight relationships,
it's your daughter, it's even in the gay community, just to be like a better support system for a partner, whatever situation you find yourself in. So that involves obviously like a lot of reading, a lot of research.
There's a lot of reading work to be done, but also it's, I think, awareness.
Yeah.
To be aware as a partner. As a citizen, you should be aware of why is a person reacting this way. Because some things are generally like they're not normal, and you can see that it's not normal, but you're not addressing it or you're not confronting it.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. When you tolerate it or you let it slide, it becomes a problem.
Yes.
You're normalizing it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and awareness again. If you go to your uncle right now in Oshikuku and you tell them, I think Dad has a mental health problem, they will look at you like,
you're probably going to be knocked to the ground.
Does he need surgery? How much is it going to cost?
It has to be physical.
Right?
It has to be physical.
It has to be physical. It's not like a thing of, listen, this person, I didn't perhaps raise them the way that they should have been raised,
Yeah.
or how can we emotionally support this person. So you're right about awareness. That I definitely agree with you. And even the same for the partners.
Yeah.
Whether it's a wife or a friend, some people don't know that mental health in men is actually an issue, and
It's a problem.
it's a big problem. It's
such a big problem, yeah.
And a lot of people don't know the suicide rates as well. The ones we discussed earlier on about men having a higher rate than women.
I
in
didn't
terms of
know that
suicide.
actually.
It
I
is
mean,
much higher.
I think about it, but I wouldn't necessarily like.
Right.
I would have never gone there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about the consequences and diagnosing as well.
Yeah.
And I think we've touched base on everything. Guys, please feel free, should you have any comments, should you have any feedback, and should you have any certain programs that you want to put out there, or certain awareness programs, let us know, or just put it out there. Let the people know, and try and engage in them, and try and just be a better support system in your community.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope to bump into you, Mr. Creative
I'll definitely
Entrepreneur.
I'll definitely come in. I mean, look, it's obviously a great place to be.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
That is it from us, guys. #Confabbing. See you next time.